The pillars of Olympian Zeus and the strange attachment at the top that no one has ever noticed until recently. These are the pillars from the construction. They're found in the center of Athens, just below the Acropolis, and they're still there. Of course, they're ruins. The pillars of Olympian Zeus, the strange attachment at the top. Researchers, academics, archaeologists, historians, and those who have this insatiable scientific curiosity, eating them up as a worm, known well, the thrill of the chasing of an inexplicable puzzle. What is this now? One of the puzzling riddles that looks like puzzles, especially when we talk about something famous that comes to us from antiquity and has been repeatedly under the microscope of scientific analysis. The reason for the Temple of Olympian Zeus, one of the characteristic landmarks of the city of Athens, the image of which we all know well and from memory. The largest Greek church during the Hellenistic and Roman years began to be built in the time of Pisistratus, the temple that is, the ancient Greek temple, in the 6th century BC. But its construction followed by foot all the tragic adventures of the Athenian state, the Macedonian rule, and then the Roman balance. Rome, of course, after the fall of ancient Greece. And it would not be completed until the 2nd century AD by the Emperor Hadrian, who was so enchanted and loved Greek greatness. And this was something that was colossal in size. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. And here we have another vantage point. You can see the Acropolis in the distance. So this is a colossal monument, and it has 104 Corinthian-style columns, although today only a handful of them are left standing. We know it as a glorious ruin, after all, a remnant of another famous era. Historians speculate that the majestic temple must have been destroyed during the Byzantine period, and its Pentelic white marble used for the construction of other buildings. For example, the Acropolis is also the white marble of Pentelicon. Now, that's where we had fires recently. Now, its first and extensive excavation took place in the period 1889 to 1896 by the British Archaeological School of Athens, followed by another excavation in 1922 by a team of German archaeologists, and in 1960 completed by the archaeological team of Ioannis Travolas of Greece. And since then, it's been passed into our consciousness as another ruined example of the famous architecture of our ancestors, leaving it in its pale whiteness, except maybe for that passionate conversation about whether they are pillars or columns of Olympian Zeus that occupied us relatively recently. But the years passed, and just last year, a British writer and researcher named Paul M. Cooper stumbled upon a mystery. He was born in London, and with 2 degrees in his hands, Cooper writes best-selling books such as River of Ink that are firmly rooted in history. So in such a personal study, he came across a photograph with a life of 160 years, the photo that showed the pillars of Olympian Zeus like no one had ever seen them before. What was this strange appendage at the top of what was now left at the temple of Olympian Zeus? The search would lead him to reveal the true story of a true architectural thriller, which even unfolded demons on Twitter, such as in a series of tweets turning the social media into the spearhead of the historical study. And what follows a revelation train with broken brakes, the image of the temple completely different. Okay, so here we have an aerial view of the pillars of that temple. Cooper begins his electronic narrative by quoting an 1858 photograph from the Temple of Olympian Zeus in Athens, an incredible photograph, he says, as he hastens to describe it, the image that made him look deeper into the object. He says, I fell down a bit of the ruins research rabbit hole today, though I'd share some of my weird journey. It started with this incredible 1855 photo of the temple of Olympian Zeus in Athens. So this is the exact image that he was talking about, as you can see. There's a structure on the top of the pillars, which is not there today. I don't know what happened to it. So he says, what caught my eyes was this weird bump on the top. It looked really strange, and it did not stick to the rest of the building. And this is what he observed from the historic photograph of 1858, the bump on the top. And he says, what drew my attention, the strange protuberance at the top. It looked really strange. It didn't fit in with the rest of the building. So this is the part that he's talking about, which is not there today. I don't know what happened to it. So he says, and it also does not match his representations of how the building originally looked. He says it did not match, it did not fit with reconstruction of how the building originally looked. This is what it should have looked like. I mean, the ends are basically tapered at the end, a triangular shape. So obviously this is not what was there. And now it's time for the mystery to unfold in all its grandeur. He says, I thought I found the answer when I found an exact copy of the image, but with the knob missing, all people, etc., are in the same place, but no strange tumors at the top. So, I thought I had found the answer. He insists someone had mounted the original photo, adding a strange piece of rubble to the top to make it look taller and more epic. And where he went to calm down, the continuation of the research brought out something more. He says, so I thought I found my answer. Someone had edited the original photo, adding an odd bit of ruin on the top to make it seem taller and more epic. Is that what happened? This, until I see in 1833 painting by Johann Michael Whitmer. So the painting even had this thing on it. So here we are. This is a painting in 1833. We can see the Acropolis in the distance, and we can see that appendage on top of the temple. And so obviously it doesn't fit with the images that we have of the friezes and the roof types on Greek temples. So he says, here it is again. That's what he said, surprising, moving closer to the painting. And when I saw this 1862 photograph from another angle, it was now obvious that the knob had been cut from the other photograph, not added to the first. The foundations of reality had already been laid. So here we are with another painting showing the knob clearly on top. Very strange. And he says, and when I saw this 1862 photograph from another angle, it was now obvious that the knob had been cut from the other photograph, not added to the first. So this is the 1862 image. Obviously, the knob is still up there. It turned out that the Christian ascetics were known as stylists or saints of the pillars. The explanation says, the stylists, that is, they used to live on top of these pillars. Okay? They used to live, some of the saints lived close to societies, but living on top of pillars. And the people would supply them with food even though they were up there. So what is this? The Christian ascetics, a type of an ordinance or a ritual, okay, a type of fasting, I would say. The pillar saints. The stylists believed that living on the top of tall pillars brought them closer to God, at the same time caused sacred physical weakness, atoning for their sins and the sins of the world. And there they were. This is an image of some Stylites saints on pillars. Of course, they had to be there, rain or shine. They believed that living on top of the pillars brought them closer to God and caused them holy bodily mortification, at the same time atoning for their sins and those of the world. So it turned out that the Christian ascetics were known as Stylites or saints of the pillars. The explanation says the stylists believe that living on top of the tall pillars brought them closer to God, at the same time caused a sacred physical weakness atoning for their sins. At some point from the destruction of the temple in the 3rd century until its examination by archaeologists in the 19th century, the the pillar saints, had painstakingly built a small stone hut on top of the ruined pillars of the temple. In the 1922 article, The Glory That Was Greece, Alexander Wilborn describes the stories of the locals who spoke of a long line of stylites, pillar saints, who lived at the top of the temple and brought them food and water with ropes and buckets, he observed. So in his 1922 article, The Glory That Was Greece, Wilborn describes hearing locals tell of the long line of stylites who lived on the top of this ruined temple, the Olympian Zeus, and had food and water brought to them with ropes and buckets. So he even describes a meeting with an old Athenian who remembered receiving offerings of bread and fruit to send to the stylites at the temple of Zeus, who took down a bucket to pick them up. And after the independence of Greece from the Ottoman Empire, efforts were made in the 19th century to strengthen the national identity by returning to the greatness of the Greek past. And so, in the eyes of the Greek authorities, the Christian addition had to leave. So they took down this addition, the knob on the front, to make the ruins look more like they looked like originally. He says, so the second image I show you is part of the effort to erase the presence of pillar saints from the archive. And if you look close, you can see the gaps from the erasure of their stone huts. Amazing, isn't it? So this is the original photo of the Temple of Zeus with the hut of the stylists, the pillars, and everything. That's what came down. That is what came down. Isn't that something? The pillar saints. So these are the fruits of his research for a monument in Athens that you can hardly imagine otherwise. This is translated for you from a Greek article from Newsbeat, and it's on the Adrastika. I think this is fascinating. Okay, if it had not been taken down, it would have been still up there, and it's a little stone hut, basically very narrow. I don't even know if there was any type of an indentation where he could sort of cover himself from wind and rain. I don't know. Very fascinating. So please leave your comments, and thank you for your support.